Welcome, my dear friend. Welcome. Welcome to Touching the Edge. Thank you for being part of this adventure of looking for what we're trying to discover and recognizing that we can't really lose what we're looking for to discover. I want to suggest to you that this is about understanding how we're viewing the world. When we see how we're viewing the world, we understand what lens we're looking through. If you are identifying with anxiety, if you see anxiety as your presence, who you really are, your whole world is going to be viewed through the lens of anxiety. That is your grounding state. Another way of describing it is the assemblage point. If you draw a huge circle and a dot right in the center of that circle, excuse me, that dot in the circle is the assemblage point of that circle. It's the very center. So what you identify becomes your framing. If you identify with something that's outside of who you really are, your framing is always going to be going from that spot, coming from outside in. I want to suggest to you that it's vitally important that we understand that our presence is the center of our world. And coming from that presence, we're able to be identified in a way that really actually authentically works for ourselves. It's about encouraging us to recognize that it's important to understand what we're assuming to be true, because that becomes our assemblage point. We learned this from great teachers like Neville Goddard or Louise Hay or Wayne Dyer, who talk about the power of assumption. What you assume to be real becomes your reality. You begin to see the world colored. It doesn't matter even what happens in front of you. Your assumption is so powerful that you'll lay it on top of that and reframe it in a way that makes it work for you and your sense of reality. This is what we see people in the world doing. We recognize the power of primary emotions. Primary emotion is what you feel, and the secondary emotion is how you feel about what you feel. So if you have a primary emotion, if you see anxiety as your primary emotion, we have to recognize that what tends to happen is we find anxiety about feeling anxiety. The primary emotion and the secondary emotion begin to reflect off of each other and create an intensity. So we want to make sure that we're connecting with primary emotions that really are things that ennoble us and inspire us. Feelings of joy as an example. When you have joy as the primary emotion, what ends up happening when you become aware that you're feeling joyful is you rejoice. You find joy about feeling joy. That's what rejoicing is about. When you find what you are focusing on, when you realize the power of your assumptions, and you assume a reality that's working for you rather than against you, when you assume a reality that works for your authentic self, not an identified external self, you step into the power of having a positive assumption about what you're assuming. You assume the positive, and when you are realizing you're assuming the positive, you get to experience the power of the realization that that assumption is being multiplied. You're assuming something that you are recognizing that you're assuming, and as a result, it begins to intensify and create a relationship to presence and strength in your life. Through assuming a world that is good, you create a world that is better. So let us know, what are you assuming? You can tell by how you feel. Are you assuming a world that is supporting you or a world that's against you? Let us know. Be part of a positive assumption and let that shine into the world. Remember, a star never limits the limit of its shining, and you can create more good by shining positivity into the world. So I'm going to ring the bell now, and I'm going to ask you to listen carefully. Here we go. If we assume a world that comes from presence, we end up finding light that shines and transforms. So thank you so much for being part of assuming a better world. Let's do it together and build this assumption for something positive. I'm going to ask you now to be aware that this day is a day that you can change by the way that you frame it. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for being part of this healing circle. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.